Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Rachel Bragg, and this is A Choice Less Travelled, where I'll be exploring lots of different choices that you can make to help you heal your mind, body, and soul. And today I'm going to be focusing on the menopause, which is a hot topic amongst lots of my peers at the moment. And I'm delighted to have with me Maria from the Nourish Centre in Bath. Maria is a registered nutritional therapist, a kinesiologist, and a homeobotanical therapist. So, Maria, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you, Rachel. Thank you very much.
Great. So I'm finding at the moment that menopause is showing up in pretty much every conversation I'm having. It may be because I'm 42 and it's quite a hot topic for everybody, but people are reporting all sorts of sort of symptoms in the body and reporting feeling like they're going slightly nuts. So I'd just like to really understand, as sort of the first port of call, what is happening to our bodies when we're entering into that phase of our life?
Well, what's happening is that our estrogen is declining. Our hormones are going into fluctuation, and they're trying to rebalance. Our body, as always, is trying to rebalance. And very much like puberty, when the hormones are fluctuating, and again, they're trying to find balance, we're going through a similar thing. And the severity of that can vary from woman to woman and man to man.
Yeah. And why? Yeah. And why does the severity sort of change from woman to woman, and how can we manage that?
Yeah, it's interesting that in places like Japan, they have less menopause symptoms. In fact, they didn't, I don't think until recently, have a word for hot flushes. And I think their diet and their lifestyle probably has a lot to do with it. So I think the severity has a lot to do with our lifestyle. The number one issue, I think, for women in the West is probably the perception of menopause. So it's a loss, apparently, and all that kind of stuff. And then there's also the lifestyle. We're living at the moment, especially, through a very stressful time. Women are juggling a lot here in the West, work, elderly parents, family. So stress is number one, and then also social constructs.
And what do you mean by social constructs?
Well, I think I think menopause is seen as a negative thing. Women are you're getting older, you're invisible, you've got more wrinkles, all those negative things. Whereas in some societies, it's seen as a positive thing, a time of wisdom and intuition and coming into your true self and being useful in society, being able to help the younger women, helping impart wisdom, the wisdom of your years.
And that's a huge difference, I think, isn't it, in terms of the way we view the aging process? Because I've had people say to me before, "Are you going off?"
Going off.
People see it as kind of going off, your eggs are going off and you're kind of getting older and you're reaching that point where, things are changing and you're not the same person that you were in your 20s. But actually, like you say, that should be celebrated rather than seen as a negative thing.
Well, what we don't hear about is the positives. So, I mean, at my menopause retreats, I like to talk about how there's a hormone called GnRH, and which is produced to release eggs, basically, in short. And when we use up all our eggs, GnRH goes into overdrive, and our frontal cortex has lots of receptors that pick up, billions of receptors pick up GnRH. And so at that time, when we have no more eggs and the frontal cortex of our brain is picking up all that GnRH, what happens is that we tap into deeper thought, reflection, intuition. We start wanting to clear out our closet. We start thinking about, what do we need? What's the purpose? Is this relationship you know, does it need renegotiating?
Mm.
Who am I? What are my values? I think that's the most important thing. What are my values? What's true for me? And we become less tolerant as well of people that don't make us feel good about ourselves, who don't, you know, don't make our hearts sing, you know. And so I think we become a little bit angrier, a little bit kind of not tolerant as much. Yeah.
It's so interesting because a lot of people do say that, and you know, people call it the midlife crisis, but actually it is that point of self-reflection, isn't it? And trying to work out what's right for me now and for the rest of my life. And I definitely would say with my friends, they're kind of going through that and questioning so many different things at this period in their life.
Yeah. I think the menopause gives us the opportunity to be who we were always meant to be, our true selves. Because before that, we're programmed, we're wired almost to be thinking about children or work, you know, that kind of strong selflessness. Whereas I think menopause makes us think about, what do I need? You know, what do I need for the next 20, 30 years of my life? Because I think it's a time where you realize your own mortality as well.
Yeah.
And I often at my menopause retreats say to women, what if the menopause was actually sent to rescue us? What if it was sent to rescue us and say to us, okay, you know how you've been putting everybody else first? Now's your time. What do you need? What do you need to feel happy, to feel less stressed? What gives you purpose? What are your values?
Yeah, wow, I love that it's sent to rescue us. That's an incredible perspective, isn't it? And can really shift one's mindset in terms of thinking that actually this is a great period of our life and time to be celebrated and, you know, look forward to, in a sense, to have that time for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think with that comes upheaval, emotional upheaval, and also upheaval in that life can't be as it was, and any type of change creates, you know, emotional challenges, and it also demands change. So you know how when you're 20 you can drink a bottle of wine and you'll be fine.
Yes.
When the menopause hits, you can't do that anymore, because you'll pay for it. You'll pay for it with really hot flushes. You'll pay for it with depression. You'll pay for it the day after by disrupting your blood sugar and then wanting more carbohydrates, which then makes you put weight on, and you know, and all sorts of things. It demands change. That's the thing, and that's probably one of the hardest things. You know, your diet, getting enough sleep, allowing, you know, 10 to 15 minutes a day of me time, so that I'm either daydreaming or doing a little bit of stretching, yoga, bit of meditation, just to cope with the change and the hormonal fluctuations. And also to come back to yourself so that you can tap into what you really want and who you are, rather than constantly giving out to our family, our children, our parents, you know, our work colleagues.
That's amazing. And in terms of the change and the sort of the symptoms, when can we expect to, because there's the perimenopausal phase and then obviously the final kind of menopause phase. So in my head, I was expecting menopausal symptoms to happen around the age of 45, but I would say I'm 42 and I've definitely seen in the last 6 to 9 months some changes within myself in terms of my cycle, and definitely feeling a little bit of internal rage going on. And it's kind of taken me a little bit by surprise. So when should we start thinking about, you know, what might come and how can we prepare our bodies?
Yeah. I think that I am hearing women saying those things earlier, and I wonder about that, and I wonder whether it's always been the case that it's around 40-ish. Obviously, there are some women who have very early menopauses. I've got a friend who, for no medical reason, had a menopause that started at 35.
Wow.
But she had a very, very high stress job. I mean, incredibly in media, very, very stress in the public eye. So I wonder if that had something to do with it. so it might be our lives now that, you know, we're living much more stressful lives. So women's hormones are more disrupted. Our diet, maybe there's more xenoestrogens in our diet, in the plastics and you know,
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I don't know why, really. I can take a guess, but yes, I think you're right. Maybe women are experiencing it earlier, and I think that maybe is the time to make some changes. So I think my approach, I made some notes this morning. I know that women around 40 have young children. So this is going to be a difficult ask, but trying to prioritize sleep. Prioritizing sleep means getting daylight so that your circadian rhythm is set, getting daylight. Especially in the winter months, it's good to go out in the morning and try and get some of that light into our eyes. So sleep is one thing. Diet, controlling your blood sugar, really nutritious food and controlling your blood sugar, and that will have a knock-on effect on your family, because if you control your blood sugar, you will, because you know, if you're saying you need to control your blood sugar, that will have an effect on your partner and your children.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not going to cook, you know, 3 separate meals or 2 separate meals. So controlling your blood sugar, which stops the fluctuations, will minimize emotional upheavals, like, because, you know, when your blood sugar dips, we tend to, emotions that you might feel are anger, also anxiety, fatigue, which makes us feel tired. And then that me time as well, having that me time at least, you know, 15 minutes a day, trying to find it somewhere, even if it's in your car, listening to a relaxation meditation. I've got a really good, actually, 13-minute meditation, and it's specifically for the pelvis, which I love, because a lot of, you know, women hold a lot of emotion in their pelvis.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
as we age, sex becomes a little bit more painful. But actually, this meditation, and we become tighter in our pelvis, because, you know, estrogen is the hormone that loosens our joints and ligament, and it's
Okay.
so this meditation is really lovely. I do it before bed, and it's really, really nice for opening up the pelvis, relaxing the pelvis. Because in the day, sitting down as well, we hold tension in the pelvis. You know, doing exercise, even running, again, tension in the pelvis.
Yeah, that's really.
I can send you a link to that.
Yeah, that would be amazing, because I've never heard of that concept before in terms of holding stuff in the pelvis. That's really new to me.
Yeah. So in yoga, when we work on the pelvis, it can release emotions. We can end up crying or feeling rage or all sorts of things. So yeah, the pelvis is there's a really good book called Wild Feminine, and it's all
Okay.
it's written by a physiotherapist, and she specializes in pelvic health. And it's fascinating because she links so many emotional trauma in the pelvis, and how to release it. Yeah.
Wow.
I'll make a note, and then
Yeah, that would be fantastic. And I'll put it all in the show notes so that people can access that, because you know, there's so many meditations available these days, but it's all, you know, to do with releasing your feelings or love and connection, self-love. But I've never ever seen one on opening the pelvis. That's fascinating.
Yeah. And I found it through a pelvic health physiotherapist, because I read a Wild Feminine book, and I thought, you know, I'd really like to go and see a pelvic health therapist, just to get checked out, to make sure that I'm not tightening, I'm not, you know, because they give you an internal examination.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And they can also massage, so that, because there are so many muscles around the vagina and the top of the uterus, and they can get really tight, and that can exacerbate you know, painful intercourse. It's not just about our skin thinning. You know, we can actually get very, very tight in that area.
And is that because of the dropping in the estrogen levels,
Or
and the holding the stress as well?
It's those two things.
Right. Okay.
So just taking estrogen, not always enough. You need to work on the actual structure of the pelvis as well. And she gave me she gave me two actually meditations to do at night before bed. And I must say, I do sleep well, but so I go to bed about half 10, 11, and I will usually wake up at about 6. But having done these meditations, I wake up at 7:30.
Wow.
Which is quite interesting. I think, oh, it's
Yeah.
really interesting that I'm sleeping an hour longer.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Just from the body relaxing more, or?
And maybe relaxing and very, very important, focusing specifically on the pelvis. I'm also having funny dreams, which is interesting. I'd had a dream last night that someone laid carpet in our hall, and it was that horrible, you know, the carpet our parents used to have with like swirl.
Yes.
And rather than the lovely plain carpets that we have now. And I said, why have we laid that carpet down? It's so horrible. I was crying. I said, we've got to take it up. Really strange. Anyway, I think to myself, it must be, you know, emotions kind of
releasing. Yeah. And
so,
would you recommend, having seen a pelvic specialist, would you recommend that be something that most women do?
I think if you've got no problems and you're 40 years old and you're okay, then fine. But I think if you're getting to 45, 50 and you've noticed a bit of pain, because what pain does, even a little bit of pain, is that it tightens, makes you tight.
Yeah.
So, and then every time you have sexual intercourse, you're like, oh,
and it's painful.
So I think, yes, I would recommend it. I mean, it's beneficial.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then just dipping into some of the other symptoms. So we talked about the rage, and the kind of the mood swings and things. Other people, I remember my mum having really awful hot flashes. So she would go bright red in the face and just drip with sweat, absolutely drip with sweat, which just became really embarrassing for her. And she found that really tricky. And then people are talking about kind of the brain fog, losing their memory, the, you know, constipation. Are they all the sort of the signs that you're going into that sort of perimenopausal phase, or is it just?
Yeah, they can be signs of menopause. Yeah.
Okay.
And again, it's I always look at it. What's my body trying to tell me? So just constipation. What's my body telling me? It's telling me I need to change my diet. I need to eat more fiber, because if you eat more fiber and you eat more cruciferous vegetables, then that helps the liver, the body to detox excess hormones that have already been used up. So, you know, we don't want to recycle hormones. They bind them and take them out of the body. So that's so clever. The body's saying, I'm giving you constipation because you need to eat more fiber. And then with the hot sweats, that's your body telling you stress. You need to manage stress.
Right.
You need to manage stress. You need to cut down on alcohol, because that's the one thing I find the biggest trigger for hot flushes is alcohol.
Right. Okay.
So alcohol, stress, and then your blood sugar. So you need to support your blood sugar. And you support your blood sugar by not eating refined carbohydrates on their own. So you wouldn't wake up in the morning and have a piece of toast, white piece of toast, with some marmalade on. That's gonna just woo. And what comes up has to come down. So you'll get a burst of energy, and then you'll come crashing down. You'll probably get a hot flush.
So what sort of things should we be eating to sort of set us up? Well, to set us up for the day, and then throughout the day as well, because there's just so many different choices of food, and like you say, everyone's getting busier. So how can we make that easy for people to, you know, have something that's going to set them up for the day that they can then continue throughout the day as well, that fits in with the family needs and things like that?
Yeah. So the key is, well, firstly, if you haven't got a thyroid problem, try and fast. So try and get to 12 o'clock without having breakfast, because that will control your blood sugar. It will help you maintain a healthy weight, and it helps balance your hormones as well. But if you do have a thyroid problem, then it's best not to do, because you're doing an overnight fast then, you see. So if you have got a thyroid problem, or you have diabetes or something like that, then I wouldn't do a long fast for 12 o'clock, because that might take you to about 16 hours fasting. You could do a 12-hour fast. So if you have your last meal at 7 o'clock, then you don't have your breakfast till 7 o'clock, or you could try and push it to 9 o'clock. That would give you a 14-hour fast.
Okay.
And fasting is really, I mean, it's been shown in lots of research to be really beneficial for us in terms of reducing inflammation as well. Okay. So that's one thing. So you could do a little fast. You could do a fast maybe 2 or 3 times a week. You don't have to do it every day.
Okay.
And then if you're going to have breakfast, and some mornings I feel like having breakfast. You know, some mornings I don't want to wait till 12 o'clock. It all depends on what I've eaten the night before. So it's good to have some protein. So protein, eggs, a very nut seed dense granola, but not too much dried fruit, not too much fruit. And then you could also, if you really need to be on, you know, quick, you could have a smoothie that you put nut butter in, some vegetables, not too much fruit, maybe just one fruit, you know, celery, spinach, cucumber, a kiwi or an apple, or banana, you know, and whisk that up. And then I sometimes put a green powder that sort of to raise the nutrient value of it.
Yes, okay.
And then a nut butter with the protein. And then just, you know, if you've got a NutriBullet, that kind of throw it all in.
Just blitz it all up. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's about protein. It's about, because protein and fat, fat's not bad as long as it's a good fat, which is things like olive oil, avocado, fish oils. They control your blood sugar because they stop your blood sugar spiking.
Right.
And there's a brilliant Instagrammer called the Glucose Goddess. So she's a biochemist. She's a biochemist and she has diabetes. And she wears a blood glucose monitor the whole time. And she's really good at drawing charts of what happens to her blood sugar depending on what she eats. So she doesn't necessarily eat healthily, but what she's really good at showing you is blood sugar hacks. So for example, if you have your breakfast and you go for a 10-minute walk, your blood sugar doesn't spike. So I actually, what I do is that those hacks are hacks I had to do on the Zoe program. I don't know if you've heard of the Zoe app.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, the Zoe app is a study done at, I think it's not Imperial College. It's headed by Professor Tim Spector.
Okay.
And the program is what you do is you can be part of their study. You pay a price, you get their app, and it's about £300, I think. And you wear a blood glucose monitor. They take a stool sample and also a blood sample, and so they're checking your microbiome, they're checking your blood sugar, your blood fats. And anyway, so I sent off all these samples, and then I had to do a challenge. So the first challenge was eat a bowl of porridge made with water, and then check your blood sugar. Well, my blood sugar went like that.
That's so interesting, because you would assume a lot of people say have porridge for breakfast. But it absolutely spiked the blood sugar, did it?
I mean, you might be one of those very special people that it doesn't spike, but it's, you know, it's a carbohydrate. It's going to make your blood sugar rise either high, or for me it was quite high.
Yeah.
The day after, I had to eat the same amount of porridge and then go for a 10-minute walk, and my blood sugar went like that. Fascinating.
Wow. So it was the 10-minute walk directly after you
gently, not even fast, gently.
Right.
The third morning, I had to have a salad, so fiber, and then eat my porridge. So first the fiber, then the porridge. My blood sugar didn't do anything. Just went.
Wow. So the same bowl of porridge, but because you had it after you'd had some fiber, it didn't spike your blood sugar. Wow, that's fascinating.
The fourth morning, I had to have a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar with a little bit of water, and then the porridge. And again, my blood sugar didn't spike. So, and the other thing I did was I did nuts the morning after. This wasn't part of the program. I did this on my own. A handful of nuts before I had my porridge. And then that didn't make my blood sugar spike either. Now, the reason for that is that protein like nuts and vinegar, for some reason, slows down the breakdown of the carbohydrate in the porridge. So it stops your blood sugar spiking. So if you want to be more alert, you want to have better energy levels, you want to stop this yo-yoing and craving, then do one of those things. And I will send you a link to the Glucose Goddess, because she's got the same hacks that I've just outlined.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it is. So she will eat a plate of spaghetti on its own with nothing, and her blood sugar will go woo.
Yeah.
Then she'll have a salad first and then eat the plate of spaghetti, and her blood sugar goes like that.
Wow, that's amazing. So it's actually about the food that you're combining together, not necessarily that you can't have a bowl of porridge, or you can't have a plate of spaghetti, but it's how you then combine that with other foods to make sure it's not spiking your blood sugar.
Having said that, I wouldn't, for example, have a donut. I wouldn't, for example, have a salad and then have a donut.
No,
because there are, that it's.
So we're talking healthy food.
Yeah, the donut's got like palm sugar in it and sugar, and it's not good generally. But it's those little tricks are really good hacks.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. And then if we balance our blood sugar, then hopefully we see an improvement in the mood swings that some people are reporting.
And so, Rachel, the last thing you said was brain fog.
Yeah.
And that's something I see a lot. Now, you and I have already had a conversation about
this. We have. I'd love to talk about that.
Shall I go through it?
Please do. I'd love to hear.
Did you get the book, by the way?
I will. And after you've explained, I'll tell you what's happened.
Oh, okay. So Rachel and I were having a conversation. We were having a conversation, weren't we? And you mentioned, and I said that I had a confession to make, which was at about, I think it was 5 months. Well, it was November because it was my birthday. About November, I thought I was getting dementia. And because I noticed that my thinking was scattered, and I thought it's scattered. My short-term memory was rubbishy. I was flitting. I found my flitting. I was feeling very agitated, and I thought, oh my God. I always pride myself in my ability to study and to concentrate, and to analyze. I mean, I love doing that. And I thought, it's changing. What's going on? And by chance, I went to London to see the ABBA concert. You know, that big ABBA concert that they've got in London for my birthday. And we stayed in an Airbnb, and on her coffee table, this Airbnb was saying, on her coffee table was a little book called How to Break Up with Your Phone. And I kind of picked it up and I kind of opened it. And there, listed, were my symptoms. And the book was brilliant because I realized that, I'm ashamed to say it, this is the confession coming up. I would wake up in the morning, before I got out of bed, I would pick up my phone and I'd look at the news and I'd look at my emails. And if I was in bed for a little bit longer, if I woke up a bit earlier, I'd spend like 3/4 of an hour looking at really bad news, So I'd get out of bed, you can imagine, with that in my head. Then I'd go to work. Between clients, I might even be looking at the news, checking my messages, scrolling. Every moment I would be picking, if I'd be picking somebody up, I would pick up, you know what it's like, Rachel. We're so addicted to our phones.
Absolutely.
But this book, beautifully, it's been really well researched, and it's not a big book. It's a small book, so you don't have to go. The first half of it is explaining how our brains are being rewired by these phones, by the scrolling is really rewiring our brains, how it's releasing dopamine. It's making us really addicted to these phones, because every time we pick it up, we get a little burst of dopamine, because we're scrolling, we're looking, we're seeing our likes and things. And that dopamine is affecting other neurotransmitters like serotonin, acetylcholine, GABA, negatively. But the most important thing is that what's happening is the scrolling is stopping information being processed properly in our brain, so that it goes from short-term memory and then gets processed to go into long-term memory. And so it's being cleared. But when we're scrolling and we're checking, what's happening is that we're getting an overload in the short-term memory, and it's making us less able to focus, less able to concentrate. But most importantly, it's stopping us from having deep thought and intuition and creativity. And at the time when I was having this little crisis, I was thinking, I've lost my mojo. I'm not creative. I'm not coming up with ideas anymore. What's wrong with me? And then I was thinking, is this old age? So I'm going to fess up and say I'm 61. So I'm not a spring chicken. So I thought it must be old age. But you know what? As soon as I read that in that book, and it wasn't long, I ordered the book immediately, actually, as soon as I got back to Bath. But on the train back to Bath from London, I got rid of all my apps on my phone. I didn't need to read the second half of the book, i.e. how to break up with your phone. I broke up with it. I thought, because what's important to me is my thinking, my being able to, because, you know, in my clinic, there's a lot of analytical, you know, I'm thinking constantly about how I can help, what do they need, what, you know, sometimes it's a process. I have to really analyze stuff. And so thinking is really important to me, and being able to concentrate and focus is a joy. So it was really important. So I got rid of all, and now.
Yeah, I was going to say, how do you feel now?
Yeah, so I have Facebook on my laptop. I have Instagram on my laptop. And what I do is I go there once a week. And what I do is, the most important Facebook stuff for me is the professional stuff. So I go on my professional nutrition Facebook page, and I go on my kinesiology one, and I go on the homeobotanical one. I'm afraid I don't look at my friends' Facebooks anymore, because I know what it's going to say. It's going to say things like, hey, I went to Stour Head and it was a lovely day. I know, and that's lovely. I'm happy for you, but I'm not really doing that. And then on Instagram, again, I look at the professional stuff. And what it's done is, within 2 weeks, I was back to normal, and I was creative again. I felt like I was coming up with ideas for handouts. I know it sounds crazy, but I love being creative, even with my work.
Yeah.
I felt like my mojo had come back again.
Yeah.
And then I had a wonderful like defining moment where my husband was in town having a drink with his friends, and he wanted me to go and pick him up because he'd had a drink. So I went to pick him up, and there's a place in Bath called Queen Square, which is near this pub called Hall and Wood House. And I was waiting for him, and it was dusk, and I almost picked up my phone. And I thought, no, I don't have to do that anymore. And I sat there, and I just thought, I'm going to just daydream. And then I looked over, and there were trees in Queen Square, and they were silhouetted, and I was watching them kind of waving, and I looked at them, and I just felt a complete sense of calm just watching them.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And then I was watching people walking along past me, and I just loved, and I'd forgotten how lovely it is to just sit and watch.
Yeah.
And pick up my phone and get agitated, scrolling or watching the news or looking at Facebook. And that was a really defining moment. I thought, that's why I'm not calm. I'm not calm because I'm scrolling. So if you are feeling like your brain isn't working and your focus, I promise you it's that. And studies have shown that we are losing focus because of our phones. I mean, there's lots of studies showing that. But the thing that triggered me more was the fact that the IT companies like Google, like Amazon, like Facebook, they want us to be on our phone, and they have tricks to keep us there. So, and I thought, I'm not going to be manipulated like that. No. Yeah. Put my phone down. Anyway, I've done my little spiel.
It's amazing though, Maria, because when we were having an initial chat about doing this interview, I said to you, you know, I'm experiencing this brain fog. My memory has hugely deteriorated to the point that I felt like I was losing my marbles a little bit and couldn't do basic tasks.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And this isn't uncommon. So everyone's saying to me about brain fog, and they're all putting it down to perimenopausal symptoms.
Yeah.
And so when you explained that story to me, excuse me, when you explained that story to me, I bought the book and I've started reading it. I haven't finished it yet, but I did what you did, and I instantly consciously put my phone down more. So I haven't got into a full routine of it yet, but in the last week, I've definitely seen an improvement in
Oh,
my memory and my focus. And do you know what's really scary is that first day where I didn't look at it, I felt a sense of anxiety.
yeah,
And if, you know, like when you lose your phone, I would always be a bit like, well, where is it? And this has only happened since I went self-employed and started my own
yeah,
business, because I was always very
yeah,
disciplined with my phone. But as soon as I went self-employed, sort of from last summer, I was checking my phone all the time for emails and messages and Facebook and Instagram and all of these things. And that's when the deterioration in my memory started. And
yes,
it's fascinating. Even at and my husband has a he's like a walking encyclopedia, and he remembers absolutely everything. So I started to feel like I was like stupid, and like, why couldn't I remember stuff? And even I noticed yesterday we were talking about all of the spa towns in the UK, because my daughter was asking about spa towns, and
yeah.
I remembered them off the top of my head.
Hey, wow, that's amazing.
But it was actually a really defining moment for me, because I just thought,
Oh,
oh, I've remembered it.
oh,
And
brilliant. It is lovely, isn't it? When your brain,
it's
you start appreciating your brain, don't you?
yes, because I literally felt like you said, you were worried you were getting dementia. I I had that thought process, because I thought, I am not remembering stuff. I
Yeah,
feel like I felt like I'd lost my intelligence. And when you get that back, or you start to see it coming back, and I definitely still need to make more changes with my phone, um, it's incredible. It's just this sense of, wow, I'm not losing my mind. Actually, I just need to put my phone down. And that's quite a simple fix
yeah,
when you get through that first 24 hours. So I think potentially a lot of the symptoms that people are reporting and sort of assuming is perimenopause with the brain
yes,
fog actually
yes,
might just be too much
yes,
scrolling on your
absolutely.
phone. And actually, if you
Well,
put that down,
I'm finding that with clients, when
right.
I tell them that they're saying, yeah, my memory's improved, actually. Yeah. And the problem at the moment is that we're putting everything down to menopause,
Yeah.
aren't we? Because of the media hype and
Yes.
Davina McCall, going, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of awareness, which is wonderful. But at the same time, it's not always about perimenopause.
Yeah.
It can be
Some
our
of our
lives.
other habits. Yeah. And actually, we need to get really honest with ourselves, don't we? And take responsibility for some of the habits that we have that actually are creating some of our symptoms that we're blaming on the menopause. But
Yes.
actually, it could be something that we could take responsibility for and change ourselves.
And Rachel, what's important for us and what's important for our children
Mm,
and everyone is that we have time where we're not doing anything, where
mm,
we are just, when I'm writing or after I've been with a client, what I do is I just sit and I just think. And what
mm,
that does is it helps us process,
mm.
and that helps us come to solutions that we might not have come to if we had picked up our phone and started scrolling. Because we
Yeah.
allow our brains need to process, needs to
Mm,
make synapses and connections.
mm,
It's like a chemical process that we're
mm.
denying ourselves.
Yeah.
It's really important for our mental health and our cognition.
Yeah. It's
I really
amazing.
like it's my thing at the moment. It's like because it's made such a dramatic difference to me.
Yeah, and thank you so much for being really honest and sharing that, because actually I think, you said, oh, I feel ashamed to admit it, but actually I think we're all doing that. We've all, had that looking up and getting up in the morning and picking up our phone and it being the first thing we look at. And actually once you break that cycle, it's really quite life
Yeah,
changing in
it
terms of your
is.
memory, and the brain fog just lifts,
Yeah, yeah,
which is
yes,
um
yes.
which is
So
amazing.
waking up in the morning. I mean, I don't turn my phone on until much later now.
Mm,
When I get to work. So it's actually quite liberating. It's kind of
yeah,
it's just really because although we like it, it's also we're slaves to it as well.
yeah, we are. It's true. It's true. It's amazing. So I encourage it. I will put the book in the show notes, and I encourage everyone to get the book and just have a look. Be honest. Be really honest with yourself about how you're using your phone and how you could do that differently.
Yeah.
Um. So just
But,
one more question. Oh, go on.
yeah,
No,
I
you
was
go.
just going to say that the things that help the brain as well, which I take every day. Well, I say every day. I don't like to take things long term, but what I do is I have a month on and a month off. Is
Okay.
turmeric. So turmeric's
Okay.
not only good for inflammation, it's also very good for the brain. So include it in food. You know, if you want to take a supplement, that's okay, but it's a very good thing to take for the brain and for sorry, and
Okay.
for, someone's just and yeah, and for inflammation. So keeping inflammation down is good, because as we get older, our inflammatory markers go up a little bit. So it's good to.
Okay. So would you, in terms of incorporating that into food, would you do that with a powder? Would you get a fresh turmeric and sort of grate it in? How would you do that?
I mean, both are good. Both are very good. A supplement's more highly concentrated, and you know, if one capsule would have be much more concentrated than a teaspoon, for example.
Okay. And while we're talking about supplements, are there any other supplements that you'd recommend that people take?
Well, I think sleep is one of the things that is another thing that people have problems with. And again, you know, divorcing your phone is one way to improve sleep. But the other, there's a really good supplement called Field Sleep, which is a powder.
Sleep. Okay.
Sleep. I'll put a link to it, which I've had good results with, and you can take that before bed. Another good supplement I can recommend is a magnesium and phospholipid supplement. Now that is really good because it's got magnesium, but it's not got magnesium citrate, which is the usual magnesium. It's magnesium bisglycinate, which is has been shown to be better for sleep. But it's also got phosphatidylserine, which is a brain nutrient. It's very calming. So you'll be calm the day after as well. So that helps. Again, I'll put a link to. But I would just like to say, whatever I recommend, you need to check it with your healthcare provider, because yes, I'm not recommending it to people without them having checked with their doctors or whatever. And then the other thing is CBD oil.
So that people are taking that more and more. Where can we get hold of that? All of these supplements.
Well, I'll put a link.
Yeah, that would be lovely. Thank you.
Then there's one place called the Natural Dispensary that has all the brands, and then you can have a look there. But I'm not going to recommend. I don't the CBD oil. There are lots of them, so you see which one.
One jumps out for you.
I mean, in the Natural Dispensary has very good brands, so it wouldn't be anything that wouldn't work. But there are people that I think there's a shop in Bath. You know, I'm sure they're dotted around the country. CBD shops where you can go in, have a chat with someone. Say what you're trying to. It's quite expensive, I think.
Yeah.
To take CBD oil. Maybe the magnesium's a little bit cheaper. So yeah, have a look at that.
It's nice to know. So we talked about kind of diet and sleep and breaking up with phones and things like that, and supplements. The one thing, because I'd really like to encourage husbands and men to listen to this interview, what advice would you give to them? Because I know from the conversations that I've had with some of my friends that they've said, you know, they've had the worst year in their marriage ever because of the symptoms that they've been experiencing. How can we help men understand what we're going through?
Well, I think there's a lot more in-work education for men and women about menopause. So hopefully that will trickle through. But if your husband's company or wherever you're self-employed, wherever, is not getting that support, well, I tell you what I recommend to couples who need to connect. It's about connection, isn't it? It's about connecting and you and the woman being heard.
Yes.
And the man being heard. Or when I say man and woman, obviously there are lots of different relationships, not just man and woman.
Yeah, of course.
There's a really good course. When I say course, it sounds like, oh no, it's like a course, but actually it's not like that. It's there's an organization called Daily On that produces courses,
Okay.
But they're all recorded. You don't you do it as and when. They're not expensive, so you pay what you can afford, either £15, £30, or £45. And there's what, and so I came across the relationship course because I bought 2 of their other courses. One was on fascia release, fascia release, and the other
Okay.
one was something called energy medicine yoga. So I bought those,
Okay.
and those courses were really, really high quality. So I knew that the relationship course would be high quality. Now, it's called 10 Steps Before You Call a Therapist, I think, a couples.
Okay.
And it's this couples therapist, American couples therapist. She's not over the top. I just want to say she's really, really good. And so you listen to her little video for about 7 to 10 minutes. It's not very long. Both of you listen together.
Okay.
And then she gives you 10 questions that are further down. And you both, to each other, answer those questions. Now, those questions are really very, very clever because my husband and I did it.
Yeah.
Because they really dig deep and allow you to really think and be able to tell your partner what's going on for you. But the questions are very clever. You'd have to.
Okay.
So there are 10 little modules dealing with different aspects of the relationship. So the first one is about communication. And I think I'm a really good communicator and I'm a good listener. But actually, when it comes to my husband, I don't think I am.
Yeah, it's interesting that, isn't it? That, in our work sometimes we can have all of these qualities that we don't necessarily always bring into our relationship.
Yeah. And I've been married 25 years. So I've been shortcutting my communication with my husband. Maybe you don't look at them in the eyes, look at them in the face, things like that, even your behavior, your mannerisms. But anyway, that's all covered. And there's even a section on sex. So sex, communication, and also there was a really good one about conflict. Very, very good. I learned a lot from that, actually. But also,
it sounds amazing.
I heard things from my husband, because sometimes I'd say to my husband, let's sit down and have a talk. Let's have a chat. And then it would be like, go on, tell me what you're feeling.
Yeah.
Would be like,
terrified, running for the hills.
But this is so good. It's so good because it's just questions, and you each answer one question each, and it's just 10 for each little lesson, and it really nurtures a connection. I can't tell you. And for the first time, you hear things that you've never heard before, and you are able to express things that your husband's or partner's never heard before. So I really recommend it. So I'm going to put that on the list as well.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Thank you. Because I think actually it sounds like every relationship could benefit from going through that process, just to have that connection, the time for each other, and just that empathy and compassion for what each other is going through, actually.
So you can have a chat with your partner. We can talk to men and say, you have to be more patient. You have to really listen to what your partner's saying, what their needs are, how difficult it is for them, and what an unsettling and difficult phically and emotionally time it is. We can say all that, but it's about connection at the end of the day and being heard. And I think that course does it really well. And it's only £15. If you want
that's amazing, isn't it?
And actually, and we did it during lockdown. And so my kids were at home. I've got older kids, so we're at home, and so we used to drive somewhere. And do it in the car. So we did one course a week, so that we could integrate what we'd heard and learned.
And that's really nice that you actually did it away from the home, and kind of, you drove somewhere and did it, so you're in that kind of neutral environment as well, where you can both share and be open and honest.
So that's amazing. I wish I could point you to a place where men could go. Now that's really interesting, isn't it? Maybe I should set up something like like a hub where men could go to learn about menopause and
Do you know, I
supporting their
think that that would be absolutely amazing, because you know, yes, there's things we can do to take responsibility for ourselves in terms of diet and sleep and supplements. But at the end of the day, this is a transition period for a woman. And we do need a bit of support and empathy and understanding while we're going through this change in this process. And actually, if we have that right support from our partner,
yeah.
it can be, I love what you're saying about it being a transition, a point of wisdom, a point of self-reflection. And actually part of that is for the men in our lives to understand what we're going through and help support us on that journey. So I think if you had a hub for men and husbands to understand that, you know, it is a scientific change, there's real things changing in our bodies, and there are, you know, there are reasons why we're questioning things, why we're wanting to make changes, and that's all completely normal, and we're not actually losing our marbles, then I think that would really help them understand that.
Yeah, I mean, on my menopause retreats, I do get women saying, why don't you run retreats for men whose partners are going through menopause?
Yeah.
But they didn't come. They wouldn't. I know they wouldn't. So maybe a kind of an online hub would be a better
Yeah, so
thing.
they somewhere where you the wife can signpost them and say, look, these are the changes going on in my body, so they can understand it, because often men like to read about stuff, don't they?
Yeah.
But
So,
I just love this conversation. You've got so much wisdom, so I'd love to hear just a little bit more about your menopause retreats, actually, and how people can find you, and what happens on these retreats. Where are they? And
right. Well, we're currently looking for a new venue for our retreats. They're just day retreats. So it's just one day. It's usually a Saturday. And what we do is we go through the emotional aspects of and the psychological aspects, and then we go through the afternoon. We spend going through the solutions, so diet, lifestyle, supplements, herbs, you know, that kind of recommending things. But we also have yoga on those days, or meditation. But it's very powerful when you get women together going through menopause. It's very, very powerful to be able to hear their stories, and so, because it becomes a support group then.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's very educational, but it's also a safe space to kind of say, I don't know, you know, talk about sex, because you know, they want to talk about sex and how their bodies are changing and how to address those changes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a really,
it sounds like a love
yeah,
it sounds like a really lovely safe space for people to explore kind of all of the changes, to share what's going on with them, their body, their mind. And sex is a really big thing that
really big. It's really
people don't, I think people talk about it a lot in the younger years, but actually people don't really talk about the changes with sex once you hit menopause, and how that can change, and how it can still be part of a lovely relationship.
I think that's another subject, which is sex changes during menopause. And for women, it's all about connection. You know, it's no, you know, before we were ruled by our hormones and that urge, and I think that urge is part of wanting to procreate.
Yes.
But when you get to menopause, it's about feeling that connection. And again, I can recommend another book.
Yes, please.
It's called Tantric Sex or something, but it's not tantric sex at all. And the cover looks like a porno cover, but ignore the cover, ignore the title. It's a really good book. And what it does is it has little exercises in it to help you connect before sex. Okay. So that when you do have sex, you're able to be open. Because again, what happens is we close in, and also it gives you another perspective about how, you know, we're quite powerful as women during sex, but sometimes men's urgency takes over that. Anyway, it's a whole other subject, Rachel.
Maybe that's another podcast.
I'm going to put sex book there, because it's a really good book to get and to read, and for your partner to read as well. If you want to enrich your sex life, and if you're in perimenopause, it's a good way to start off doing that, so that when you get to menopause, you've got some tools in your
tools in the tool bag.
Yes. I mean, I could go through so many solutions, but for menopause, like herbs and things. But what I'll say is control your blood sugar, get enough sleep, and manage your stress. Really important.
Yeah,
And obviously, yeah, your nutrition, which is to do with your.
Yeah, that's amazing. So if people want to come and see you personally, because obviously you're a registered nutritional therapist, you're a kinesiologist and homeobotanical therapist, can you just tell us a bit more about the kinesiology and also the homeobotanical work that you do and how that can help people?
Yeah, so when people come and see me, they fill out a very extensive questionnaire, and then I go through the questionnaire with them. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to build a picture of them and their health, their lifestyle, things that have happened to them. You know, maybe they've had trauma, maybe they've had emotional upheaval like divorce or moving house, just to build a picture, a bit of family history to see if there's any patterns in terms of health. And then when I've done that, I then do kinesiology. Now, kinesiology is, I've been doing kinesiology for a long time, for 18 years. I've got a degree in nutritional medicine, and I did kinesiology 2 years after I graduated. And kinesiology is a really good adjunct to nutritional therapy, because through muscle testing, and it's really difficult to explain, but through muscle testing, a muscle is usually strong, you can challenge that muscle with different things. Now, in the simplest form, you can challenge it with foods, and the muscle will really go weak quite quickly if you put a food on that's the easiest thing to do in kinesiology. But because I love kinesiology so much, I've trained and trained. Now what I do is I can address emotional issues as well as the biochemical stuff. So I can work out whether there's a nutrient deficiency or an underlying imbalance that needs fixing. It's like the body's talking to us and saying, this is out of balance, this is how to rebalance it. You know, and that might be a nutrient, it might be excluding a food or including a food, it might be taking a homeobotanical remedy. So homeobotanical remedies are dilutions of herbs that can address all sorts of ailments. There's quite a lot of them. And then I put together a program that is individual to that person, depending on what the kinesiology has highlighted. And kinesiology also has lots of techniques that we can use for calming a very anxious person, or someone whose cortisol is kind of running the show, or there are many things, and there are lots and lots of techniques we use. So
I guess if
usually lasts about an hour and a half.
So if I'm guessing if you're discovering something through the kinesiology that someone's lacking in their body, then that could also impact how they go through the menopausal process.
Totally, so with kinesiology we can also test all the glands, so the hypothalamus, the pineal gland, the pituitary, the thyroid, the adrenals, and the ovaries. So I check those with all women. And also I can check individual hormones like estrogen and progesterone and adrenaline and insulin. There are lots and lots of things that are checked. And the gut, health of the gut. Do you have a leaky gut? Do you have candida? Do you have a parasite? So many things, lots of things, because all those things impact hormones, health. Because what we are is we're a web of connections. What happens in the gut affects our hormones, affects our blood sugar, affects our mental health. You know, serotonin is triggered by the good bacteria in our gut, you know, our happy neurotransmitters. So many things are interconnected, and that's why I say it's very important for me to be able to analyze in my head and to work out the connections and what's best for that one person.
Amazing. So I would definitely recommend, if anyone is really struggling with the menopause, then to reach out to Maria, go and visit her in her clinic and have all of these things done and try and find a solution for you, because it really sounds as though actually it should be a time of wisdom, self-reflection, and actually, you know, we can do stuff to help ourselves manage the symptoms that we might be experiencing.
And if you aren't in my area and it's too far for you to come, then just go onto the BANT website, which is the British Association of Nutritional Therapists, and have a look at someone who's close by. They might not be doing the 2 therapies together that I do, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a good step forward to go and see a nutritional therapist. Or you can go to the Kinesiology Association and have a look for a kinesiologist nearby as well. Yeah, it's about self-help. Yeah.
Amazing. Oh, Maria, I have thoroughly enjoyed the conversation that
I've
we've
really
had
enjoyed it as
today.
well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge and your wisdom. And I hope people get in touch with you if they really need that extra support. So thank you so much, and I will speak to you soon.
Have a lovely day, Rachel. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.